Tough guy Ma Tong-suk strikes again with a powerful blow, but humans are no longer enough for him to fight this time. His opponent is a demon. In 2025, Ma Tong-suk's latest exorcism film is coming out with a bang. One day, Inspector Matty approached exorcist Ma Tong-suk with a tricky case. His friend's daughter, Linda, had gone missing. Matty's friend was extremely anxious. He insisted that his daughter couldn't have just vanished without a word. Something must have gone terribly wrong. He had previously hired 3 detectives to investigate the matter. In the end, 2 of them died, and the remaining one ended up in intensive care. The situation was too terrible. He had to call in Ma Tong-suk to take action. Ma Tong-suk reassured him not to worry too much. He would definitely get to the bottom of it. Then, Ma Tong-suk began to gather clues. The police identified a suspicious location through photos and sent people there. However, not only did they fail to rescue Linda, but they also suffered heavy losses. Nonetheless, the 3 caused doubts in the girl's father. Ma Tong-suk responded immediately, "Don't be fooled by their strange appearance. Their professional skills are definitely strong." The family pleaded with them to save their daughter, then they left. Filled with worry, the inspector took out a bag of cash as payment. Ma Tong-suk immediately pulled out a stack of money, saying it was a hardship fee. The inspector smoothly tucked the money into his pocket. Just like that, the exorcism trio officially began their mission. At this point, the news was filled with bad reports. A group of gangsters was committing crimes everywhere. There were murders and assaults. They even dared to brutally kill police officers. In front of surveillance cameras, the police chief was very angry. He had never seen such furious criminals. It was said that these criminals were a group of cultists. They somehow gained terrifying powers. Ordinary people were no match for them. No wonder they could only hope for Ma Tong-suk and his team to take action. The exorcism trio found the location where the girl was bound. The people inside had vacant stares, clearly not normal. At this point, the cultists inside were performing some strange ritual, and Ma Tong-suk stormed to the entrance, facing off against 3 muscular men. Later, they broke into the ritual hall easily. The cultists immediately shed their robes and charged at them. Ma Tong-suk continued to swing his fists, as big as sandbags, one by one. He knocked the enemies to the ground. Assistant Sharon seized the opportunity to pull aside the white cloth. She pressed down on the unconscious Linda's head. Linda immediately began to struggle in pain. During this time, several thugs attempted to intervene, but they were all sent back by Ma Tong-suk's fists. Once Sharon began the exorcism ritual, Linda let out a piercing scream. Her struggles became more intense. Ma Tong-suk fought off the enemies while keeping an eye on the exorcism. After a while, Linda went limp and fell silent. Team member Gimgun raised the camera to capture the strange tattoos on the cultists. Linda hadn't been fully possessed. She was temporarily out of danger now. Only then did Ma Tong-suk breathe a sigh of relief. Gimgun awkwardly spoke up. He had been too engrossed earlier and missed capturing some key moments. Ma Tong-suk was at a loss for words. He couldn't possibly wait for these people to wake up and do it again. Upon learning that the inspector's people were on their way, Ma Tong-suk burned the strange summoning altar in the hospital. After making her rounds, the female Dr. Mary met Father Mike. Father Mike stared at her back, deep in thought. Then Mary arrived at another patient's room. Seeing her sister Kate tied to the bed filled her with a sharp pain. After returning to her office, Mary opened the previous surveillance video. In the footage, Kate was screaming wildly during her episode. She looked particularly frightening. As a psychiatrist, Mary tried various methods, but none were effective. In the end, she could only place her hopes on the mystical practice of exorcism. At this point, Ma Tong-suk was on the phone with a nun. She said she was busy taking jobs to make money, planning to build a new wing for the church's orphanage. Then Gimgun came over to report. He had discovered that the tattoos on the cultists come from the demon Beelzebub, a top demon who had inherited the positions of Beelzebub and Lucifer. He was likely to uncover the identity of the cult leader soon. The frequent appearances of top demons may bring about a greater crisis. The 3 had just returned to the office. Mary suddenly popped up, startling everyone. Mary said her sister urgently needed help. Ma Tong-suk asked if it was introduced by the inspector. Upon learning that it was recommended by Father Mike, Gimgun's expression changed instantly. Ma Tong-suk firmly said that they wouldn't take the case. Mary was so anxious she was about to cry. Her sister's life was hanging by a thread. She was willing to give up everything to save her, but Ma Tong-suk remained resolute and decisively refused. Mary had to give Sharon the video of Kate in her business card. She asked her to pass them on to Ma Tong-suk, hoping to change his mind. During the night shift, Mary dug out an old video. In the footage, Kate was smiling brightly. The 2 were happily preparing for a move, but looking at Kate now, Mary couldn't help but cry. Suddenly, Mary noticed that Kate's bed was empty. In the surveillance footage, she rushed toward the patient room, but when she opened the door, it was completely empty. Mary felt a chill down her spine. As if someone was approaching, she turned around but saw nothing. Kate was still lying in bed as if nothing was wrong. The next day, Mary recounted her strange experience from the night before to Father Mike, but the church had now issued a strict ban on exorcisms. The priest suggested that Mary should still try to contact Ma Tong-suk. Meanwhile, Ma Tong Suk returned to the office and asked where Sharon had gone. Kim Gun proposed that they should take a look at the video Mary provided. After all, it was recommended by Father Mike. Ma Tong Suk interrupted with an annoyed expression. He told him not to mention Mike in front of him again. After saying that, Ma Tong Suk pulled out an envelope to hand out salaries. Sharon's envelope was thick and bulging. In contrast, Kim Gun's was pitifully thin. The young man wasn't pleased. Ma Tong Suk explained that Sharon's work was both exhausting and dangerous, so the wage difference was naturally significant. Kim Gun seized the opportunity to request a raise. His reason was that the workload had doubled. Ma Tong Suk completely ignored him. Just as the atmosphere became awkward, Father Mike suddenly arrived. Ma Tong Suk's expression darkened instantly. The priest wanted to bring up Mary's sister, but as soon as he started, he was interrupted by Ma Tong Suk. Ma Tong Suk bluntly said that he didn't want to have any dealings with clergy. The priest knew that Ma Tong Suk still held a grudge over past events. That disaster had claimed too many lives. Ma Tong Suk's friend Joseph had been possessed by a demon and killed all the children and nuns in the orphanage. Ma Tong Suk exclaimed passionately that Joseph had died long ago. Now, he was merely the demon Lucifer, and he was a demon raised by the priest himself. The priest still wanted to plead, hoping Ma Tong Suk would save Kate, but Ma Tong Suk turned and walked away. Kate had another episode. Several people struggled to hold her down. A mother approached Sharon, tears streaming down her face, to express her gratitude. Thanks to her help, she was able to find her son's body. Sharon felt overwhelmed with guilt. She thought that if she had acted a bit faster, perhaps the child could have been saved. But the mother urged Sharon not to blame himself. It was precisely because of them that her child could rest in peace. But these words triggered painful memories for Ma Tong Suk. He could only release his pent-up feelings through intense exercise. Meanwhile, Kim Gun watched the video Mary provided. Feeling increasingly distressed, Sharon recounted the fierce battle from 7 years ago. At that time, they were being hunted by demons. It was Ma Tong Suk who saved everyone from Lucifer. If it weren't for Ma Tong Suk, she and Kim Gun would have been dead long ago. What was there to fear for someone who had died once? This reminder made Kim Gun no longer hesitate. The two decided to help Mary's sister, so they began to watch the video Mary had provided. They found that Kate suddenly lost control of her emotions and yelled at her sister while practicing dance, but in the next moment, she was beaming with excitement, claiming she would definitely succeed this time. Soon after, the package was delivered to the door. Later, while Mary was sound asleep, Kate's blanket suddenly lifted on its own. She stood by the bed like a ghost, staring at her sister. By the time Mary woke up, the room was already empty. She searched the entire house and the surveillance footage, but found no one. She called, but no one answered. Finally, she discovered that Kate's phone was on the ground, recording. Kate was repeatedly banging a knife against the wall. In the end, Mary hurriedly stopped Kate. Ma Tong Suk stared blankly at an old photo of the orphanage for a while. Then he suddenly called Kim Gun over. He wanted to see the video left by Mary. In the video, Kate was frantically choking her sister and pinning her to the ground. There were also scenes showing that she seemed to be controlled by an invisible force and flew out completely. However, upon closer inspection of the video, Ma Tong Suk and the others discovered something alarming. On the day the two sisters moved into the villa, a worker was cleaning the basement. He had an unmistakable cult symbol tattooed on his neck. Ma Tong Suk recognized that this person was Joseph. They had grown up in the same orphanage. Joseph was 3 years younger than him. When they were kids, Sister Angela cared for them like a mother. Ma Tong Suk was naturally strong, while Joseph had a gift for exorcism. They were like brothers. Eventually, Joseph became an exorcist. Ma Tong Suk left the orphanage to make a living, but every Christmas, he would return to the orphanage to visit everyone. But everything changed 15 Christmases ago. Joseph was possessed by a demon and killed Sister Angela and all the children. Ma Tong Suk fought desperately but was unable to prevent the tragedy. Since then, he had been consumed by a single thought: to hunt down Joseph and take revenge for his family. Once, he nearly suffocated in a dream due to a demon. Fortunately, Ma Tong Suk woke up just in time to save his life. It turned out that Joseph had been consuming others' lives to grow stronger, but Father Mike couldn't believe that the child he raised would become like this. As a result, he never revealed the truth to the church. Because of this, Ma Tong Suk harbored deep resentment towards the priest. Unexpectedly, just as the priest explained the situation to Mary, Mary received a call. Ma Tong Suk was actually willing to help. After they met, Ma Tong Suk told her the exorcism would be led by Sharon. Kim Gun would assist alongside. However, her sister's situation wasn't simple. There might also be other possessed individuals or cult followers nearby. All of these needed to be addressed as well. Ma Tong Suk introduced Kim Gun could sense demons, while Sharon excelled at fighting demons. Ma Tong Suk seriously warned Mary that this work was extremely dangerous. Not only would they risk their lives, but Mary and those around her could also be implicated. He urged her to think carefully about whether she wanted to proceed. Mary nodded in agreement. Sharon analyzed the video and confirmed that Mary's sister was indeed possessed by a demon. Those delivering packages and working, many were disguised cult followers, it was they who used Kate to complete the demon summoning. These followers hid too deeply, and ordinary people couldn't see through them at all. They were loyal to the demon and harmed others everywhere. Even more terrifying was that the cult trained assassins specifically to kill those who stood in their way. Those so-called demons were actually high-ranking members of the cult. They followed the orders of the Archbishop, searching for sacrifices to perform evil rituals, and Mary and Kate's pure hearts made their souls more susceptible to becoming vessels for summoning demons. Soon, Ma Tong-suk and his team arrived at the psychiatric hospital. Sharon quietly asked Kate if she could hear her. Kate surprisingly woke up and was able to respond to questions. Sharon then asked who else was speaking to her besides her. Kate replied that indeed someone was whispering in her ear. Sharon suggested that she would like to talk to the entity. Perhaps she could persuade the demon to leave. Then, Sharon placed her hand on Kate's head and softly asked, "Who are you really?" Kate suddenly rolled her eyes back, her body struggling violently. Then she fixed her gaze on Sharon. Clearly, the demon had made its appearance. Suddenly, the bed began to float. Ma Tong-suk quickly pressed down on it, and the lights flickered continuously. Kate suddenly stood at the head of the bed. Sharon recited an incantation, commanding the demon to return to hell immediately. Kate fell violently to the ground. Ma Tong-suk picked her up and pressed her down on the bed. Kate struggled violently. Sharon placed her hand on her head again, and loudly commanded the demon to reveal its name. Kate's face contorted as she rolled her eyes back. She knocked all four of them to the ground. By the time they regained their senses, Kate had already vanished. Everyone hurried to the surveillance room. Surprisingly, they could see Kate's figure on every screen. They all saw Kate's presence. Sharon realized the demon was trying to escape and needed to be stopped quickly, but just as she reached the door, patients from the hospital poured out, one by one. They stood with vacant expressions, blocking the way. Meanwhile, Kate had already reached the entrance of the hospital. She was stopped by a security guard. They exchanged a few words when the guard suddenly knelt on the ground, banging his head against the floor. Kate walked out. Mary rushed out, shouting Kate's name. Kate paused for a moment, regaining her awareness, but the next second, she was flung into the middle of the street. Mary shouted frantically, "Don't move!" Kate cried out for her sister, repeatedly saying she was scared. Mary disregarded the danger and dashed into the traffic. Just as Kate was about to fall, Mary rushed over and hugged her. Then Ma Tong-suk appeared just in time, helping the two avoid the oncoming cars. The situation was worse than they had imagined. Even Sharon couldn't identify what kind of demon it was. It had already possessed Kate's body. Staying in the hospital would only put more people in danger. They needed to go to Mary's house immediately to put an end to it, so the group rushed to the villa. Mary held Kate's hand, urging her to hang in there. Ma Tong-suk and the three quickly took action. First, they checked to see if the doors and windows were locked. Then Gimgun set up the camera. Sharon counted the exorcism tools. Then, they tied Kate to a chair. A fierce battle was about to begin. Suddenly, Kate let out a deafening roar. The entire villa shook along with it. It felt as though an earthquake had struck. Kate regained her awareness. She cried out for help from Ma Tong-suk. Ma Tong-suk held Kate's hand tightly. He promised that he would rescue her. This exorcism had a total of 6 stages. The goal of each stage was to make the demon reveal its true name. Only then could it be completely expelled. Sharon demanded that everyone strictly follow her instructions. Moreover, once the ritual began, it couldn't be stopped. Otherwise, everyone present would suffer the consequences. After Sharon's instructions, the ritual officially began. The first stage was manifestation. This was to ensure that the demon was truly possessing Kate. Kate trembled all over, saying that someone was always chasing her. Just as Mary was about to comfort her, she was stopped by Ma Tong-suk. It was obvious that the demon was pretending to be pitiful. To halt the ritual, Ma Tong-suk signaled Gimgun to set up the camera. He then reminded Mary to do whatever he said. Sharon stepped into the salt circle, warning the demon to reveal its name. As she spoke, she grabbed a bamboo ruler and tapped it on Kate's head. With Kate's screams, Sharon repeatedly pressed the demon for its name. Suddenly, Kate went silent. They entered the second stage, the deception phase. The demon cried out for help to Mary, trying to deceive everyone. Sharon immediately took out a mirror. Kate began to struggle violently. The mirror suddenly shattered. The demon let out a piercing laugh. She claimed to be the original creator. Everywhere, nowhere to be found, and endless. As soon as she finished speaking, the room was gradually shrouded in darkness. Ma Tong-suk told the others not to move. He went outside, breaking through the wall to catch a cultist. But then, more cultists emerged. Ma Tong-suk could only fight while defending. Meanwhile, Sharon was still pressing for the name. The demon suddenly launched an attack. The nearby instruments exploded with a bang. The demon stood upright, taunting Sharon. It mocked her for not daring to enter the circle. The piercing roar hurt their eardrums. Sharon gritted her teeth and stepped into the ritual circle, pressing his hand on Kate's forehead to recite the incantation. The demon fought back wildly. Meanwhile, the cultists outside tried to break in. Ma Tong-suk quickly knocked them down to the ground, but as he turned, white powder rushed at him, making his vision go dark. Ma Tong-suk could only hold on and take down all the enemies. Gimgun couldn't help but admire the boss's fighting strength, but he reminded Ma Tong-suk that the weapons these people used were very sinister. Getting hit could result in paralysis or even death. The ritual had to continue. They had just reached the third stage. Sharon was about to let everyone take a breather, but Mary unexpectedly started rapping. Sharon's expression changed instantly as she cast a spell, shouting for the demon to get out. In an instant, the room was plunged into darkness. Fortunately, Gimgun had prepared emergency lights in advance. Only then did everyone realize that the demon had been successfully expelled. Sharon concluded that there must be a greater secret hidden in the house. Using her sensing ability, Sharon discovered that the wall behind the wallpaper was covered in spells. It seemed that the entire house was cursed. All these spells had to be removed. Ma Tong-suk grabbed a hammer and struck the wall. With each hit, sparks and black mist erupted. The spells on the wall spread outward. At the same time, Kate let out a terrified scream. Gimgun hurried back into the room. Kate said it felt like something was leaving her body. He thought the demon had left. Just as he was about to approach, he was yanked back by Ma Tong-suk. Kate looked at her sister, crying and begging her to let her go. Mary also tried to step forward but was similarly stopped. Kate suddenly wore a strange smile. It turned out that the demon had been pretending to be weak. Now they had entered the fourth stage, the voice stage. The demon began to manipulate Ma Tong-suk, saying that those children were all killed by him. Then it used Kate's voice to plead, "Uncle, let me go." Ma Tong-suk was disturbed. A demon kept whispering in his ear, "The children's deaths are all your fault. Follow me, and you will gain eternal life." Ma Tong-suk struggled desperately against it, but in reality, it was Sharon who was being attacked. As Sharon was about to be choked to death, Ma Tong-suk suddenly snapped back to reality. The demon let out a piercing laugh. Sharon quickly drew her divine blade and swung it at the demon. Each strike made the demon writhe in pain. After several rounds of slashing, the blade pressed against the demon's eye. The demon asked where the blade came from. This power was supposed to belong to its brother. Sharon arrogantly replied, "If I kill your brother, then everything he owns will be mine." Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, the demon suddenly exhaled a white shell, instantly freezing the divine blade and surrounding objects solid. Sharon looked at the frozen blade and surroundings, feeling a surge of panic. At this point, she was pulled into the demon's mental realm. The demon tempted Sharon, "Why spend your life opposing us? Just join us, and you will gain limitless power." Unfortunately, Sharon's mind was extremely resolute. After she shouted loudly, she successfully broke free from the illusion and returned to reality. Then, Sharon summoned all her strength to compel the demon to reveal its name. The demon twisted in pain, turning to look at Mary. Mary's heart softened. She instinctively took a few steps forward. Just as she stepped on the salt circle, disrupting it, Kate suddenly exerted her strength. The salt circle was completely shattered. By the time everyone reacted, Kate had already broken free and was lying on the floor in the hallway. A roar sent everyone flying backwards. When they struggled to get up, Kate had long since vanished. The exorcism had reached a critical stage, and they needed to find her immediately. Everyone quickly split up to search based on the sound. Mary ran to check the surveillance footage. Suddenly, she heard Kate's voice coming from the cabinet. Just as she was about to get closer, the screen suddenly flashed with a pair of blood-red eyes. When she looked back, the screen returned to normal. Mary reached out to open the cabinet, but the cabinet suddenly fell towards her. In a critical moment, Ma Tong-suk managed to hold the cabinet up, but suddenly Gimgun was lifted by the neck to the ceiling. Sharon quickly dispelled the demon to rescue him. It seemed that there were multiple sources of evil power in this house. Mary suddenly remembered that she had seen a couple mention that there were large items in the basement, and that woman had a tattoo on her neck that was identical to the cult's. Upon hearing this, Ma Tong-suk rushed towards the small shed outside. Then, Sharon sensed that Kate was becoming more and more like a demon. At this point, the three looked up and saw Kate hanging upside down from the hallway ceiling, looking terrifying. The demon screamed and pounced down. Fortunately, Gimgun blocked it, preventing Sharon from being caught and killed. Gimgun desperately fought off the demon. Ma Tong-suk successfully found the entrance to the basement. He charged into the cult's underground hideout. A cultist asked, "Why use the power given by the devil to protect humanity?" Ma Tong-suk started fighting right away. He unleashed his unbeatable skills. Any enemy who was hit by his fists was covered in black mist and sparks, collapsing to the ground. Seeing they couldn't win, the enemies pulled out poison powder for a sneak attack. Ma Tong-suk was blinded by the powder. Suddenly, a rope was tightened around his neck. Several people tried to choke him to death. Ma Tong-suk used his brute strength to hold the rope, but the enemies didn't give him a chance to break free. The small leader even sent his subordinates to kill the others. Ma Tong-suk was extremely anxious. He pulled hard and finally broke free from the rope, but he was stabbed in the shoulder by a dagger. Meanwhile, Sharon had already lost consciousness. Gimgun was also running out of strength, but to hold off the enemies, he grabbed a stick and charged forward, but was soon beaten to a pulp. As the cultists prepared to deal a fatal blow to Sharon, Massachusetts Tong-suk burst in and knocked the cultists away. He pulled Gimgun up, but before they could steady themselves, they were thrown against the wall by the demon. The demon was surrounded by dark mist, muttering strange incantations. To try to erode Sharon's will, the demon aimed to turn her into a puppet. Unexpectedly, Sharon suddenly opened her eyes and said, "I know who you are." The demon possessing Kate was Morocco, which specialized in devouring the souls of children to do evil. Now they were in the final stage of the exorcism. As long as they held on, Kate could be saved. Then Sharon shouted the demon's name. Immediately, black mist surged from the demon. It thrashed around wildly. Sharon couldn't afford to hesitate. She gave it her all to drive the demon back to hell. Kate's body was suspended in midair, but it manipulated objects in the room to launch attacks. Ma Tong-suk quickly shielded Sharon. The two faced off against the demon until the last moment. Finally, Kate collapsed to the ground. Sharon was so exhausted she could barely stand. Then, a mass of black mist floated out of Kate's body. At the same time, a black hole appeared on the wall. The black mist was slowly being sucked in, but soon Kate was pulled back into the air. It turned out the demon wanted to take Kate back to hell. Mary rushed in to pull Kate out. Ma Tong-suk also wanted to rush over to help, but was thrown back by a force. Gimgun tied the window frame with a rope, and together with Mary, they held onto Kate, but soon, the window frame was pulled apart. Ma Tong-suk grabbed the rope and pulled with all his strength. Sharon struggled to get back up as well, with both hands pressed on Kate's head. She began the final push. The demon threatened Sharon, saying, "You won't live much longer. Hell is waiting for you." As soon as these words were spoken, Sharon's eyes turned black, but they quickly changed back to white. She used all her strength to shout that she would completely exorcise the demon. The demon still wanted to struggle desperately. Ma Tong-suk transformed into his demonic form. With one punch, he sent the demon back to hell. The black hole slowly disappeared as well. Finally, the demon was completely expelled. Mary tightly embraced Kate, repeatedly calling her name. In the anxious gaze of everyone, Kate slowly opened her eyes. Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. The story ends here. In this film, Ma Tong-suk's character is like a humanoid tank. One punch takes down a dark follower. He takes physical exorcism to a whole new level. Su Xian's exorcist character is also impressive, pairing with Ma Tong-suk, one for melee output and one for ranged magic. They work in perfect harmony. Additionally, the plot isn't complex and the pacing is tight. The main trio fights while unraveling the mystery. There are also first-person camera shots interspersed throughout, adding a touch of suspense to the story. Overall, while there are some horror elements, it feels more like a dark version of a superhero film. There isn't much psychological torment. It focuses on the thrill of using violence to combat violence. If you enjoy my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to it.